Hi there. Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks is an exciting new digital opportunity to obtain mentoring to help you improve your modeling. You will meet talented modelers and manufacturers from all over the world who share their model building skills and artistic advice. Improve your modeling and increase the confidence in your modeling efforts. Share your building efforts with fellow modelers and have some fun doing it. The shows are live on Zoom and YouTube, so be sure to join in and ask your questions. Now here is New Tracks founder and your host, Jim Kello, MMR.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really do appreciate it. Hope you'll come back often. Tell your friends about us. Before we start the show, I want to introduce Father Ron Walters with our show's prayer. Father Walters, welcome.
O God, as we create and miniature the world around us, may we marvel at the beauty and genius which created the world and instilled in us a portion of your great knowledge and wisdom. Give success to the work of our hands, O God. Amen.
Thank you so much, Father. We appreciate everything that you do for our show. You have a good evening. Thank you. Phil, now I'd like to run the sponsors video for Brennan's Model Railroading.
For over 25 years, Brennan's Model Railroading has been offering unique products for the O-scale market. Our flagship product, Brennan's Better Ballast, was an instant hit and continues to be the industry leader. Its prototypical size and natural color blend of real crushed granite make it the choice for discerning modelers. Since then, we've developed a complementary line of natural ground cover materials. Additionally, we offer craftsman kits that anyone can build with complete photographically illustrated instructions that assume you've never done this before. The Sonky Wanky Coffee Company is the latest and the fourth kit to be added to our ongoing and highly popular limited edition Ellison Tribute series. These kits take Ellison's scratch-built iconic structures to a new level with Dennis spin. The idea being that if Frank were alive today, this is how we would build these models using modern methods and materials. Use the QR code to visit our website.
Dennis, thank you so very much. We appreciate your sponsorship. Well, now I want to turn to Chris Corse and Greg Cassidy for them to talk about the upcoming My Build. Chris, Greg, welcome.
Oh, thanks, Jim. Hey, Greg.
Hey, Chris.
All right. The next My Build is a free-for-all. It is featuring you, and that will be on November 20th. So show us what you're working on. Please be sure to include a little bit of a description, maybe a scale at least. And in the event that for whatever reason you're not able to make it, at least we can talk a little bit intelligently about about what you're working on or what you're showing us. To participate, email me, railrunner130@hotmail.com, and please get that to me by November 17th. And then we'll go on to the next slide here. The December challenge is interiors, because that's the time of year. December is the time of year where we're all moving indoors and doing a lot of indoor things. And this is one of the categories that you guys selected, said that you wanted to try and see people do. So anyway, as part of that, interiors, the insides of buildings, engine houses, caboose interiors, that sort of thing, whatever you can do to fit into those categories. That show will be December 18th. And again, to participate, email your photos to me, railrunner130@hotmail.com, and try to get those to me by the 15th. That way I can put them in some sort of order. If you want to send them in tonight, and just make sure that you mark that it's for December, and I'll go ahead and put those in the folder. And as with the November challenge also, please include a brief description, maybe a scale, that sort of thing. That way we can talk about it if you're not able to make the show. And I think that was about it. That's all I really had for tonight. So going back, November 20th, please get those photos to me by the 17th. And that will be what we have for tonight. Do you have anything to add, Greg?
Yeah, let me remind everybody, this free-for-all coming up, every other month is a great opportunity for you to show not what you've done, but what you're working on, whether it's a kit or a diorama or your layout, a car you're working on, anything. It doesn't have to be done. Just show us what you're working on. You might have a question about it, or somebody else might have an answer to a problem you have. So these free-for-alls are perfect opportunity for that.
All right, thanks, Greg. And I guess we'll turn it back over to Jim.
Well, and I'd like to mention that I hope you do tune in on the 20th of November, because one of the projects that you're going to be able to see is a project from Greg Cassidy that took a first place in a contest that he recently entered. So you don't want to miss seeing that.
Jim, that's going to be in the December, my build.
That's fine. Okay, then it'll be in December, but don't miss that, because we've got to say thank you so much for doing it, Greg. Okay. Next, I want to have Martin Brechbiel, NMR, talk about our newsletter a little bit. Martin, welcome.
Thanks, Jim. The November issue should be available. I'm not sure if it is or not, but it should be. I sent it off to you and your minions last week, I think. But I've already started working on the December issue, and it's growing leaps and bounds, 30, 40 pages already, and that's good. We could use more, but what I really wanted to mention was I'm actually trying to put a photo on the cover. We're going to have an actual cover. We have a back cover now, which is from the Great Scale Train Show sponsor of banner that they provided, but I'm going to start creating a actual cover, and I need photos to do that. And this is my asking everybody to consider sitting down and getting a little bit artistic with your camera and taking a portrait orientation photo of something you think is worthy of a cover of a publication, and send that to me. And if I can use it, I will, and it will get used eventually. We have 12 issues coming up next year, so I'm going to need at least 12 photos. So there's your chance. And that's all I got tonight there, Jim.
And any month we don't have a photo, Martin has volunteered to show himself.
Yeah. Scantily clad.
So anyway.
On the third page.
Thanks for everything you're doing, Martin.
You don't want to have that happen, so you better get yourself some photos sent in.
That was the threat, Martin.
I just had to up the ante a little bit for you.
Well, now I want to turn to our scholarship discussion with Bob Davidson. Bob, welcome.
Thank you, Jim. Maybe if I did the same scantily clad thing in return for some donations, we'd go broke. We'd go broke. Anyway, things are going well. A couple of updates that I'd like to give regarding sponsors. We're really pleased to report that John Gear, who does so much for us here, who is the producer of the Great Scale Model Train Show at Timonium, he has agreed to up his donation and is now a silver level sponsor of the scholarship. So thank you, John, and please support all of these sponsors as much as you can, because they do so much for the scholarship. I happen to see the new president of the Amherst Railway Society at the Syracuse Rail Show this weekend, and very nice gentleman, and they are very much excited about their association with the scholarship, and they hope to be our partner for years to come. So that it's very it feels very good to know that we're doing something that's appreciated within the industry. And speaking of that, we also welcoming a new manufacturer's sponsor, our partners who are putting a little flyers in with their kits. Just today, we are welcoming Lambert, a Locomotive Works, to our group. So we now have 6 companies that are placing flyers in their kits and products to promote the scholarship. Please, if you know of any companies or if you have a company that is involved in the model railroading field, please get in touch with us. This is separate from any kind of financial support of the scholarship. This is just a way, and an important way. And the more that we research this, this is going to be, I think, the prime way that we're going to do our outreach to students and potential scholarship recipients. So please consider that. We have a list that we'll be going to, and I will be personally walking the floors at some of the train shows coming up to try to get some of these manufacturers to help us out by spreading the word for the scholarship. That said, we've got 7 weeks left basically in this year, this calendar year, which kind of also correlates with the fiscal year of the scholarship. So please, if you've been waiting, please don't wait anymore to make a donation. This is a time that we need everyone to help us out. Thank you, Phil. That was quick. So whatever you can do to support us, remember that your donation is 100% tax deductible. You can make it through the Zephy platform, which is linked off of the scholarship tab at newtracksmodeling.com. I also want to remind everyone that you can make a gift in honor of or in memory of someone. There is now a field on the Zephy site that you can do that, and your gift will be acknowledged in that fashion. So please, over the next 7 weeks before we're going into the holiday season here, this is a great way to invest in the future of our hobby. And if you haven't made a gift this year, please consider it. We will appreciate it. And our overhead, we're now working at about 99% of the funds that we raise are going directly to the scholarship. We really have close to zero in operating expenses. So know that it's a good investment. It's a good donation. And it's necessary because the numbers in our hobby are dwindling. We need to get these young people retained. We need to make sure that they stick with this as they get through college and move on from there. So, I thank you in advance for your generosity. So back to you, Jim.
Well, and let me make a couple of statements to kind of reinforce what Bob is saying, because Bob is doing some wonderful things for the scholarship. I didn't realize it. Bob did, and made arrangements with FedEx, where now we are able to have a FedEx account of our own, and it's automatically for shipping the banners from one place to another that we want to be able to show the banners. And what this allows us to do is pay a cheaper rate to FedEx. And also we had to make arrangements to the bank so that the charge can go directly to our account and so forth. Bob made all of those arrangements. And up to this point, really, the FedEx charges are the only costs that we've had for the scholarship. Now we have a cost. We have to pay the state of Florida for the corporation once a year, and I forget how much that is. I think it's $100 and something, but don't quote me on that. But I think it's somewhere around there. And we don't have a cost for the IRS or anything, except that we have to send in the paperwork once a year for them. So really, we're operating on not just on a shoestring, less than a shoestring, because it's really just the shipment of the banners. Because Bob Davidson and his company donated and prepared the banners that we're using for free. So we haven't had an expense for the banner preparation or anything. We just need to be able to get them to the people who are volunteering their time to help us and represent us at the various shows around the country. So it doesn't get much cheaper than that to try to run a scholarship program on a national basis. And at the same time, we are hopeful that we can offer at least 3 scholarships this coming year, 2025, as we did this year. And, you know, for a bunch of volunteers that are giving their time and some giving money and so forth, to be able to offer $6,000 in scholarships. We're the only organization of volunteers out there doing anything like this for the hobby. There's no association doing it. There may be in the future. I mean, if they like the idea, they may not want to support us, but they may decide that they can let us spend the time and the effort to make scholarships awareness program for kids, and then they'll step in and figure that they'll get some glory out of it and new members for their association. I don't know what they're thinking. But at any rate, there's none out there right now. Walters is giving them, Walters Corporation is giving them. And I so admire them because that's where I got the original idea to start it for us. And I can't thank them enough for the help that they've been and guidance and so forth and ideas that they've provided. But we're the only bunch of volunteers out there doing it. And in addition to the money, it's not just the money. We're getting people who are joining the committee now, who want to be a part of what we're trying to do, who want to help make the whole program a success. We picked up 2 new volunteers last month. And I'm happy to see that we're starting to get that kind of interest and that kind of participation, because this is not a money program. That's not how we're looking at it. This is for the future of our hobby. The kids that we're trying to help here, they are the leaders of the future. If we're going to have a model railroad community in the future, the kids of today need to become model railroaders. And in my opinion, the older people in the hobby today need to do everything that we possibly can to help them become great model railroaders and have great careers. And if we can help them financially get through school for their careers, that, in my opinion, is what we ought to be concentrating on. I don't know how else we can help the kids more than that, than trying to help them get a college education or get some educational benefit that they feel is going to help them in their future career, and therefore be able to be a leader in our hobby in the future. So please take a look at it. If you can't afford any money, we understand that. We're not asking everybody to be a donor. Give us some time. Help us a little bit. Come up with some ideas. Tell us you want to be a part of the program. Bob's got all kinds of jobs that he can create for you and doesn't mind doing it all, including taking pictures of him. But we won't go into that. But anyway, if you're interested in helping us, we sure would appreciate knowing about it. So send us an email to Bob or to me, and we'll certainly get back in touch with you and see what your interests are and how we can work together. This is a great program. We're doing everything we can to make this available to every kid in the United States who wants to continue their education in a STEAM program in a college, university, or technical institute. And we certainly do appreciate everybody's contribution, but we also need help. We just need volunteers. We need people that can do some of the grunt work necessary to make it happen. Why aren't other organizations doing it? Because I'll tell you why. It's a lot of work, and it hadn't been done before, and it's almost like we're creating the wheel, and we're being successful. The wheel is turning, we're doing something right, and we're getting support, not just financially, but volunteers are coming to the program and wanting to help it be successful. Thank you so very much. And that's all we got to say about the scholarship program right now. Bob, thanks so much for everything you're doing.
Thank you, Jim. It's an honor and a privilege.
Well, now let's see about O-scale modeling and what that's all about. We have a sponsor for this segment, and that's the O-scale Central organization. If we can run their promotional video.
I'm David Vaughn of O-Scale Central. O-Scale 2-rail, models built to 1:48 scale and running on 2-rail track, is the best kept secret in model railroading. We're pleased to team with Jim Kello to introduce O-Scale 2-rail to New Track's viewers. O-Scale 2-rail is for modelers. At twice the scale and 8 times the mass of HO, O-Scale's heft and ease of modeling create an outstanding model railroading experience. O-Scale 2-rail modeling is as varied as railroading itself. Modern era, transition or old time, standard gauge or narrow. A wide variety of models is available at affordable prices. There is a supportive community and lots of shows, clubs, and events. You can explore O-Scale 2-rail by going to our website, oscalecentral.com. You will find information about the scale and how to get started, as well as a free, searchable, scale-wide product and service guide and listings of coming O-Scale events. You will also find information about how to join O-Scale Central. We promote O-Scale 2-rail and support modelers in the scale. When your eyes are going bifocular, when you need fresh challenges, keep O-Scale 2-rail in mind. Check us out, oscalecentral.com. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much, David. We really appreciate the support we get from your organization. Normally, our host for this is David Schultz, but David can't be here tonight. He's got a conflict with another event. So I've asked Tom Farrell to join us this evening and talk about a part of O-Scale that some people know an awful lot about, others maybe not so much. So Tom, welcome.
You're muted, Tom.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. Hold on a minute. I wasn't ready. Just a moment. Okay, so Jim asked me to talk a little about O-scale and the narrow gauge components of O-scale, and this evening is just going to be just an overview of what I intend to do. But O-scale narrow gauge, we're going to feature next year. We're going to feature a whole segment on this with Steve Sherrill. He's going to handle talking about O-scale in general, and we're talking about ON18, ON30, ON3, and I don't really have anything this evening formally, Jim. I'm sorry. Not prepared on this, so.
Okay, well, you know, it's while O-scale 2-rail, you know, is standard gauge, and a lot of people may associate it just with standard gauge. It really encompasses much more than that. Traction, for example, I'm a traction guy, so I'm also a 3-railer because my overhead wire is my common. My 2-rail, all of my wheels pick up power from both rails, and I wire both rails together. So I guess in that sense, I'm a 2-railer. Outside third rail used to be extremely popular back in the 30s, 40s. I'm not sure how many people today really have a outside third rail layout. If you have one, I'd love for you to come on the show and talk about how you build it and what's involved in it. Because while I've seen them, I've never tried to build one. I don't know how to build one, and I don't know the tips and the secrets of building the outside third rail.
Hey, Jim.
Gil?
Yeah, sorry, I'm a little more composed. It caught me a little off guard. Okay, so we're going to I'm going to present a upcoming segment that's going to, and this will just be a little overview, but basically we're going to talk about the difference between gauge and scale and proportion. And some of these things aren't fully understood. For example, in O narrow gauge, the two common scales are ON30, which is the most popular narrow gauge scale, and ON3, which you could consider is fading away, but the upcoming scale is ON18, which in essence runs on the same gauge as N scale track. And we're going to talk about in upcoming segments what that means. For example, the fact that ON30 runs on HO gauge track doesn't necessarily mean the bulk of the modelers are using HO scale track. They're using a ON30 track, which has correct tie spacing, for example. And also ON18, for example, even though it runs, the gauge is 9 millimeters, which is N gauge, there's specific track becoming available for ON18, which has the correct height of the rail and the correct tie spacing. So we're going to go into the details of O scale in general. I'll have a full presentation on this. So why don't we leave it at that right now, Jim?
Okay.
Just as an introduction, and I'll have something formal next week.
But I'm assuming everybody out there understands that when David talks about 148 O scale 2 rail, that everybody understands that includes narrow gauge, that includes the traction, that kind of thing. That they're not talking about. He's not talking about just the standard gauge 2 rail 148.
Yeah, I think what you're saying,
I think that's important for everybody to understand, because O scale 2 rail is more than that.
a lot of people don't, particularly when people say O scale, they normally think of the high rail, or they think of the 2 rail 148. But there's all sorts of variants that we're going to talk about. And what our goal is with new tracks is we're going to, when we refer to O scale, it shouldn't automatically go to standard gauge, which is the 2 rail, or call it the line L or high rail. It should be thought of as there's a variety of narrow gauge, there's traction, it's all encompassing. And as the hobby, we believe the number of hobbyists is going down. There's room for consolidation in speaking about O gauge. It should be all encompassing. And that's the point we're going to try and get across. What's the difference between, again, just what's the difference between gauge and scale and proportion, which is the third element to this whole thing. Anyway.
And why this came about, why we think, Tom and I have talked about it, why we think this is important, is Tom and I, in a previous show, had quite a discussion about when you say that there's an O scale car on HO track, and that means it's at ON30, what does that really mean? And how many people understand what scale that O scale car is really in when it's a part of the ON30 HO track program? And so that's kind of how this discussion started, and we thought it was necessary and fairly important for everybody to understand the difference between the scale and gauge. And that's why we want to try to do this. So Tom, thank you so very much. We look forward to hearing from you more about this.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the false start. I was a little startled. Thank you.
That's no problem. I was going right down the traction road there.
I was out in left field, I guess. Okay.
Well, next I want to talk about high rail modeling. Modeling is modeling, whether it is scale or high rail. And for this, we have a sponsor, Millhouse River Studios.
Millhouse River Studio builds model train working accessories that are made to last generations. Millhouse River products are built out of aluminum and have scale brass details that even the most demanding scale modeler will appreciate. Since our industry entry in 2009 with the introduction of our flagship turntable, Millhouse River has continued to add new, innovative products, like our scale transfer table, rotary coal dumper, flood coaling tower and, most recently, a working conveyor that transports coal from the dumper to the loader. All of Millhouse River Studio's stunningly realistic products are currently available in O scale. We are adding new scales on some products, including the upcoming release of an HO scale turntable featuring our aluminum construction and stunning brass details that is big enough to handle a big boy locomotive. When it comes to your layout, don't settle for less, get Millhouse River Studio.
And our host for this segment is Mr. Dennis Brennan of Brennan's Model Railroading, who is the sponsor for this show. Dennis, welcome.
Hey, Jim. Hi, guys. Can I add one little thought about the narrow gauge, if you don't mind? Something that I think a lot of people get confused about is because it's running on HO track, if you say ON 30, if that's what it is. The models are still 1/48 scale.
That's correct.
So I think that's where people get confused, because narrow gauge, typically although they're built to 1/48 scale, they're smaller. The rails are smaller, the tracks are smaller, everything is smaller because they had to wind around mountains or whatever. And it was less expensive too, to make something smaller. So that's all I wanted to say. Okay. Didn't mean to step in there, but I know that's where a lot of people get confused.
We'll provide the clarification in a formal presentation. This was just a taste of what's coming. Yeah.
Yep. Well, all right. Anyway, what I'd like to talk about tonight is an experience I had building a Corber kit one time. A customer sent me a kit. Oh, this was years ago. He was having a heck of a time trying to put it together. He said the walls were warped and there were some other issues. So I said, send it to me. Well, now Corber makes, they're now being released by Mr. Muffin's Trains, but this kit was from the 1980s, and it was an original Ernie Corber kit, hence the name Corber. It was done by a gentleman who came out in the 1950s with these resin kits. Now, resin was not necessarily stable when it first came out. So you oftentimes ran into warped walls, and you still may find that if you get one of these old kits. At any rate, I think it's a good constructive piece to show what you can do and to not be discouraged if you have an issue. Most people get frustrated building models because of inadequate instructions. And then with today's models, sometimes there's pieces that don't fit exactly right. And, that can happen to anybody's kits. One of my kits, one of the things wasn't quite right, but I put it in the instructions. on how to fix that. I mean, after you get a production run done, you're not going to redo it, so you figure out a way to deal with it. At any rate, I am going to start here. Let's see, I'm going to share this. And okay, here we go. Okay, am I still on here? Is everybody seeing me? Because
Okay, you are, click on the upper right, click on the square box to make it full screen.
Okay, as long as you
No,
got.
no, the next to the X, that one there.
Yeah, okay. You see that all right? Okay, that was the Korber kit. Now, some kits have problems. Like I said, this one had every problem you could imagine. Besides the instructions that were sketchy at best, there was no diagram or anything else. And there were 9 different wall castings, 6 of which had to be combined to make 3 of the 6 walls. And each wall section had stamped numbers on it, except there was a number 1, and then it jumped to number 8 through 15. It was really weird. And the instructions were just really not very helpful. And so this is the finished model that I ended up with, obviously. And it doesn't look like it had any problems, but believe me, it did. Okay, here were the instructions. Now they were, this is the only diagram. You didn't have a diagram. You had pictures. And you had the castings, and then all you had was this, which said basically glue this to this, and 8 to 9 and 9 to 10, and it didn't really. And I built a lot of models. It was confusing me. So what I did is I went and I then decided to draw. I took the walls and this is how they were numbered, okay? Now you can see it doesn't make a lot of sense. So what I did is, this is a diagram I made, and I made that simply by tracing the walls onto a piece of paper. And then I combined the pieces of paper. Ultimately, what I did is, because I took a photograph of it and then combined, I taped them all up together and then took a photograph of it and then streamlined it in Photoshop. But you don't have to go through all that. I just wanted something neat, and I was writing an article about it, so this is what I did. So I laid them out in the way that they had to get joined. And you'll see what that involved. So then here was one of the first problems I had. It had it had evergreen styrene windows, and the windows, they wanted you to insert them from the outside. Well, bricks, windows for bricks, you don't have a frame on the outside of bricks. It just, windows are not made that way. So I reversed, I stuck the windows in from the inside and then turned them upside down so that the sash would be in the right orientation. But the problem is, and you can see it here, the windows were too big by 1 brick. So I had to file out the opening, and they were too tall by 1 brick. So I had to file that out. And you can see it here. Here's the way the opening came, and here's what I had to do. So that was number 1. And with any kit, be it plastic or resin or even laser cut wood, plaster, you should always dress the castings first. And that is, just take either a nail file or very fine sandpaper and clean out any flash that might be in the windows. or in plastic kits, you'll have flash, you'll have parting seams. So you want to address that stuff. And if you don't do it, that's the difference between a really nice model and one that's just like slopped together. All right. Now here is an example of the wall, one of the walls, and you can see the warp, totally warped. How do you fix that? Well, that's not really too difficult. What I did, every wall was warped. Every single wall was warped. And one of the walls was actually seriously distorted. And I'll get to that in a bit. And some of them were not square even. They're not, or not at right angles. They weren't at right. So first, to get rid of the warp. And I had 1/2-inch square basswood. Now you don't need 1/2-inch square basswood. 3/8 would work. But I had it and I used it, and I used it's a resin kit, so I used epoxy, and I clamped those things together with my clamps, my bar clamps, or C clamps you could use. And here's what they look like here. Now here, you see this? I had to put a white piece of plastic in here. Why did I do that? Well, when I joined the walls, this wall was to be joined to this one, and the height was off. Now, you could get away with a roof being a little bit lower or a wall being a little bit lower on one side, but then you see the windows wouldn't have lined up properly. So I put in a little spacer here. Not a big deal, but something to think about. Come on here. All right. Now, here's where I joined them together, and you can see there is a serious problem here. You'll notice that this doorway is like twisted, and this is out of square. Well, I think what happened is that this piece here was pulled out of the mold before actually cured completely. And so what that did is it warped everything. Now, how in the heck are you going to fix a warp? Well, the bottom wasn't too bad. I mean, I got the, and when I say warp, it was distorted. It was like twisted. To get the warp out, I just used the wood like I did on the other shots. But you can see this here. Well, that wasn't really a problem. I think I put a little piece of plastic in there, very thin plastic, and super glued it in and then filed it down. And because it's so close to where the base of the building would be, you could easily hide that. But once it was painted, you never saw it. Now, as far as the doorway goes, what I had to do to fix that, there isn't any way that you could fix that. So I cut it out. I completely cut it out. You can see how the bricks go up here and then go down. Well, I cut it out and then filed it down so everything was straight. And once that happened, you can see I filed this down. And I had to make that flat. So I made sure that that was all done. So that solved that problem. And then I primed everything. Once I solved all the problems, I primed the building with just flat white primer. Typically, I'll use a gray, but in this case, I like to use, well, that's not true either. I like to use white primer simply because any colors you put over it are going to stay pure to the color. In other words, if you use a darker primer, then your top coat is going to be affected by the color underneath. And so it'll tend to darken it a little bit. Now that may or may not be a problem, but in this case, by priming it with white, then I use water-based paint, like little craft paints, and like a sponge brush. And what I did is I got a little paint on the brush, not soaking, but just enough. And then I wiped the brush across the bricks. And what does that do? Well, if you do it light enough, it doesn't get into the bricks and you've got mortar. So by doing it that way, you don't have to do a separate mortar wash. And I've used that trick several times. It's kind of a neat effect. Okay, these are the paints that I used for that. And there's the little brush that I used. And the dark chocolate I used basically as a wash. And then I just varied it. I also maybe colored a couple bricks with that too. But I just kind of streaked down the sides, put some paint on there, and then just wiped down the sides very gently so that I had a kind of an uneven coat. Now you can see here I did some weathering, and I painted this. You can see the differences here in the brick. I weathered the doors. Basically with the doors, I had sprayed them white. Then I put camo green. Now the doors, I redid them. This one is the door that was in there, but the other door that I had to cut out, I put in a door from another manufacturer. But you can see this was white, and then I sprayed it with like a camo green, and then I took a wire brush and I scraped down the sides of it to get that weathered effect. And then I also used like chalks underneath the windows to go down, and I had a little bit of India ink alcohol wash on here. Let's see, where am I? All right, here is how I put these together. Typically, when I join a building together, I'll put a side wall and a front wall, and then the opposite side wall and the back wall together. And if you make sure that they're at right angles to each other, then when you join it together, when you join the two front side wall and back side wall together, you're going to have a perfectly rectangular building. And you can see I use a glass cutting board. I've said this before, and a carpenter square. And this is another little square that I used to make sure everything was vertical. And you can see how I clamped the sides together. Now, when you're using epoxy, you can use 5-minute epoxy if you want. I think I used regular epoxy on this because that's what I had, and so I let it sit overnight. And here's how I join sides together as well, using bar clamps. These are really handy. If you don't have bar clamps, you really ought to get them. You can get these at Micro Market. You can find them at on the internet. The other thing I did is I added window sills because this didn't have any sills at all, and that's just evergreen styrene strip that I added. And then here is the other section that I joined. So this was one, and I had these were all. You can see the instructions did not tell you any of this, how to do any of this at all. And then you can see the warp on that end wall. That was typical. Every wall was like that. So when I use the bar clamps, and you can see that the brick walls, one wall will have bricks inscribed in it, and the other wall was just flat. because this one goes against the flat unscribed wall. And when you're joining walls together and you're putting pieces of wood in there, make sure that you put the wood against the wall that doesn't have the, that doesn't have the brick built into it. So if I can go back here, see, you have to just be aware of where you're going to put your wood piece. Otherwise, you'll end up with a problem. So kind of put them together with your clamps before you make sure you know where your wood pieces are going to be. So I left room for that piece. Okay, and then I used a C clamp to clamp that sucker, and I let that sit overnight. And I think that's about it. So there's the finished model. This doorway, when I cut it out, that's where that bad door was. I cut it out, and then I just added a piece of plastic around here. I framed it, and these were doors. You could get those something similar through evergreen styrene. These came from, I think it was called the Gould Company. And I don't think they're even in business anymore. It was something I had laying around in my scrap box. But that's it. So if anybody has any questions, I'll turn this back to Jim if I can figure out how to get out of here now. Hold on.
It's a good looking building.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Dennis?
Dennis, on the end piece that had the warp on it, was there enough flexibility in the plaster casting to clamp the way you did?
Okay, well, that was, Bill, that was not plaster, that was resin.
Okay.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to do that with plaster.
Yeah, I was wondering.
Yeah, no, that was a total resin kit. And that,
okay.
Now today, I gotta say, Korber kits today are not anything like they were back then. So please don't please don't think that you're going to get a kit that's all warped and stuff. The main thing behind what I did here was wanted to make sure that no matter how much of a problem you have with a kit, don't give up on it. Just deal with it. Figure out how to make it work. And that's what I did.
Dennis, you did a great job with that, and the finish looks fantastic. Another thing with resin walls, I had an Altoona Model Works tower that in O scale, it had been sitting for quite a while, and one of the walls had some warpage to it. And I put it in on a flat glass sheet in the oven at about 250 for a half hour with some weight on it, and it took the warp right out of it and didn't damage the brick any. And it built into a beautiful model.
Well, yes, I've heard about that technique too, but
it's risky. I was afraid.
Yeah.
I did a little test piece first.
Good plan.
Yeah.
Good plan. Well, this was a kit that somebody had sent me, like I said, and I didn't want to take a chance of screwing it up.
Yeah.
Because he was going to pay me to do this. But once I got into it, then I realized he told me to keep the kit because there wasn't any way. I spent hours working on that thing, and he didn't want to spend that kind of money. And he appreciated what I did. And so he said, just keep it. So I sent him something. I think I sent him one of my freight dock kits in return.
Yeah. Well, you ended up with a nice building out of it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's now on a layout in Florida.
Thanks so much, Dennis. See you next time.
All right. Thank you, Jim. And thank you guys. I'll see you next time. And it's been fun. I'm going to have to sign off because I got to help my son do some work tonight. So I got to leave. So, all right. Thank you.
See you next time.
All right. Bye, guys.
Well, now I want to turn to Tom Farrell, who is scratch building his way up. and see what he's going to share with us this evening. So, Tom, I'm back with you.
And I'm under control. Tonight I have something a little unusual. I'm building what's called a donkey engine for someone as a courtesy. It's I was trying to make it finish it for the show here, but it's going to take me couple shows to do this. So I'm going to explain first what a donkey engine is. A steam donkey or a donkey engine. It's basically a steam-powered winch. And they use them in the logging industry, and they use them in the mining industry, and in maritime operations. This is a photograph of an actual steam donkey or donkey engine. This particular application for this modeler is an ON30 logging operation that he's putting together. So his will be for a forestry operation. So basically with that winch, they use cables and chains, and they basically pull timber down the mountain, or larger pieces of larger trees that they couldn't otherwise do with, for example, animals or men. And the fellow that runs this is called a donkey man. How'd you like to be called that? This guy named John Dolbear, Dolbear Carson Lumber, he invented this back in 1881. It made it significantly more productive to use steam power than animals or men, and it just helped with the automation of the timber industry early on, almost 150 years ago. After, as you might imagine, they eventually retrofitted these with gasoline and then diesel engines. And, steam was a lot more difficult to maintain and operate. A diesel engine, you simply fuel it up, turn it on, and away you go. There's a few of them that are in museums, but very few are in operational condition. There's a couple of they're actually out in the woods in California. The size of that. They came in different sizes. That one's sitting on skids. I searched the internet to get some prototype photos so I could get an idea what they look like after some use. There's another one. Now this is the kit. This is a pretty rare kit this guy gave me. It's called a Willamette logging donkey. And the company that produced this is no longer in business, as far as I know. V&T shops. They made high quality resin and metal casting kits. I searched on the internet. I couldn't find them anywhere. It's a pretty good size steam donkey that I'll be building. These old kits are quite challenging. The instructions were they might as well have been in Chinese. It was just very difficult to follow. I finally just put them aside and just started working from those prototype photographs. That's how the kit came. I'll bet you this kit's 50 years old, 40 years old. These are the resin components right here. There's a frame, and this is the actual boiler. These are the cast components all in bags, and this is the skid that it sits on. And these are the cross braces for the skid. So first thing I did is took those skids, and I took my razor saw across them and put a little detail on there, make it look like they were wood. And then I took one of the cross pieces and super glued it across. But you can see the detail of added detail instead of just using the wood right out of the box. It's just pine or fir. You can add detail to it. And I stained it. And then I took one of the resin components. This is the fuel tank. I super glued it on. I put these other cross pieces in. Then I added these wings. These there's so much stuff on this platform, there's nowhere to walk. I've saw some online that actually had walkways, so I put walkways on mine. So I'm kit bashing this to make a long story short. This is the resin frame. It's a weldment of a fabrication, excuse me, and simulating a fabrication. I super glued that in place and I put this block in place. This is where some of the block and tackle get glued to. I put this decking material on. I just couldn't see how anybody could walk around on here without falling into the middle of it. So I'm made the executive decision to put a deck on here. Flipping it over, I put these supports here because actually it came with the deck. Come to think of it, I'm sorry. It came with these wings, just like that. That's how the kit was intended. And then I thought, well, how on earth would they support a big piece of wood like that? First off, there wouldn't be a big piece of wood that big and that long. So that's when I made the decision to basically do an upgrade and put on this decking. And then when I put the decking on, I thought there probably would be a means to support that decking. So that's how I went down this rabbit hole. These are the metal parts. This is they had some flashing on them. It had a lot of flashing like right here. I mean, as an example, I went around with a file and just filed the teeth and sanded it flat both sides. There are a bunch of parts like that. Then I primed them with a Tamiya light gray primer in preparation for eventual painting. Next thing I did is I super glued the boiler in place and began super gluing. These are the pistons for the steam engine. Those are white metal castings. I had to file those. These are pretty crude. There's a lot of filing of the metal castings. The resin parts were perfect. I didn't sand anything. I think I sanded the top of this so that my super glue would have something fresh to bind to, but the resin parts were virtually used as is. The white metal parts, there were a lot of work to get them to look like that. This was one of life's little mysteries, how to put this together. The instructions were useless. I had a couple of trials and had to, it actually works. You can move this around. All these parts move. So I went to the detail of filing all the gears and I had to figure out how it worked. And it can be built several different ways. And the prototype photographs helped a lot here. These are more white metal castings and all super glued together here onto the resin frame. Applying that material on there. It's pretty detailed. It has, I mean, that's magnified hugely. That's primered. I went in there and hand painted it with a, it's actually flat black. I don't know why it looks glossy, but I used a Tamiya paint for that. I always paint my white metal castings with a primer first. And then I'm intending to make this rusty. And I found that to achieve the best rust, you don't just paint primered pieces with your rust color. I always found it looks better when you start with a black base. Focus, little out of focus there, but these actually look like rusted metal parts. We'll have a better photograph coming up. Yeah, there we go. So this is first shot here of it's not weathered or anything. Then since it's a skid, let me get a drink here. I thought it'd be dragged through the mud. So I took Sculptamold and I put Sculptamold on both sides of these skids. I just didn't think it would be clean. And so I put it on the inside and the outside. I put Sculptamold all over it. And then I painted the Sculptamold with just muddy colors, just acrylics. And I put some grass. I took some Elmer's glue and spread it on here and sprinkled a couple colors of ground cover on here. This photograph showing that these things are all painted rust colors now. This is a multi-layering process of various acrylics. Now we're getting a little better look to these, to the whole model with the rusting and the weathering. There's a nice shot. This has that piston in there. That was loads of fun to get that to work. This thing actually runs. You can actually run this round and round. This was very difficult to get that in there, that piston in there, and this shaft. And these are tiny, tiny parts. I was terrified I was going to drop some of these pins and I don't know what I'd do. But that looks, that's looking pretty good now. These are some bolt details I added from Grant Line. I thought, how the hell would they hold a big block like that in place? Why, they bolted it down, I guess. So I put these on here. I'm going to put some wires. I'm going to put these sort of bolts here and run wires across. This will be next week. So this thing will be held together by a series of heavy rods and bolts. I'll put a little more weathering on this thing. Oh, I'm also going to put a roof on this. I went online and some of them have a structure that protects. I mean, they let this protrudes through the roof, but it protects the gearbox and the engine from the weather. And then I'm going to put boxes and ropes and miscellaneous things on the bottom here. There'll be like a structure of sorts sitting on top of this. So it's a little unusual model. I saw a kit on eBay. That's where I got the idea for the roof. They wanted $480 for the thing in O scale like this. So I guess they're quite expensive models, but it's going to be an interesting little scene when I'm done. Okay. Any questions on this rascal?
Tom, you got a firebox door around the back on that boiler facing
Yes.
the tank, I guess?
Yes, there's one there.
Yeah, you probably ought to have a stack of wood. They would undoubtedly fire the thing with wood.
Oh, yeah, good idea. Yes, I would have missed that, actually. Good idea. Thank you, Jeff.
And I
Yeah,
assume the tank is the water supply for the boiler.
how is it? There's
The tank is the water supply for the boiler.
hold on a second.
That's I'm guessing. What else would that tank be there for?
Oh, yeah, I called it a fuel tank. Yeah, it's a water tank. You're right. Yeah, you're right. That's a water tank. Yeah. And there are pipes and things that come off of this, which I haven't put on yet.
Okay. So you tie it all together. Yeah.
I have not put the pipes on yet. There's all kinds of pipes and little tiny, these parts are very tiny. That's why I ran out of time. There's all kinds of valves and governors and all kinds of weird stuff. I mean, just all kinds of stuff that I have to put on here before I put that roof on. But yeah, this is a very, very challenging kit. That's for sure.
I look forward to
I
seeing
like your
it.
addition. I like your addition of the nut bolt washer castings. I find out a lot of wooden stuff that the manufacturers don't think about how it was put together, and that adding nut bolt washer castings adds a lot of credibility.
Yeah, this will, I call it super detailing it. And it's another model that I'm going to finish and wish I didn't have to ship it away to California again. But I don't have.
There's a great book out there, In Search of Steam Donkeys, and the whole thing, the book is all focused on the donkeys in the woods.
How about that? This is a very, on a scale of 1 to 10 on difficulty, 10 being the most difficult. And I'm fairly accomplished modeler. This thing's an 8, easy. It's a gigantic pain in the butt. You know, these little tiny parts. Oh my God.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing more of it next week.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Well, now I want to introduce Martin Brechbiel, NMR, for his scratch building corner. Martin, welcome.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Let's see if we can get this to work. Hey, so far so good. There it is. And of course, this toolbar is in the wrong place. Whatever, what else is new? Okay, so something different tonight. We're going to look at a piece of rolling stock for traction modeling. And we're going to do the whole thing in one night, so bear with me because I'll probably go too fast. And this is where we're going to start. A brass body shell. I got this, I don't know how many years ago, 5, 6 years ago. Somebody was selling these on eBay, and he was selling 7 or 8 of them. And I thought I should get one. I'm not quite sure exactly what it is until I get it in my hands, as it turns out, but it turns out to be what you're seeing. It's a traction freight trailer, but it's just the basic body shell. There's no doors. So that makes it a little interesting. Guess what? There's no floor either. And there's holes at a strange location, which doesn't really make sense for a freight trailer. You know, if you want to have holes in it, I guess this is where the kit that was supplied that built this shell up, you had 2 formers for the ends, and you had something in the middle, but the floor you're on your own. So I've got to finish a floor. That's not a big challenge, although that curved end is a little interesting. And hey, guess what? There's no roof either. A lot of solder, but there's no roof. And I really don't know the source of who made these. You've even got scribed brass flooring, so you could set the doors that aren't there to be open, so you could see it if you really wanted to. but I'm not going to worry about that. So let's start with off of this. It's going to be, let's just supply all the missing parts and put it together. So we got no doors, we got an unfinished underbody, no roof, all the details. So what? No problem. Let's just keep going. You know, don't let that phase you. I mean, just make what you need. It's not a hard deal. So the roof. Okay, this is round roof stock. They sell it for reefer cars. Well, here's the trick to this. Standard freight car roof is, freight car is a foot wider than the normal traction car. Just the way that is. So this roof is a 1/4 inch wider than it needs to be. Well, if you rip it down the middle with a table saw that takes out cut in each direction with a modestly thick blade, you take out 1/4 inch. Guess what? There's your foot that you needed to lose. You just glue the two halves back together, give a little bit of sand to take the ridge out of the middle. And if you take too much out of it, you just put a little piece of basswood back in the middle. And now you just glue all 3 pieces back together and sand it smooth. Now you have your round roof for a traction roof. It's just that easy. Of course, you do need a table saw. I do not own a table saw. I have a radial arm saw. So, no, I did not do this on a radial arm saw. I'm not that crazy. Despite what many may think, I have all 8 fingers and both thumbs, and I intend to keep them firmly attached to me. No, I actually took the wood into the machine shop before I retired, and let the machinist do this for me. He had a monstrosity of a table saw, and he thought this was hilarious. After I explained to him what I was doing, he just thought I was more than a little crazy, but he was happy to do it and rip them in half and hand them all back to me. I got about 7 or 8 pairs done. So I have plenty of roofs to play with going forward. But it's not a hard thing to do. You can get a roof from Northeastern Scale Lumber. They still sell them. And there's the underside. It's nice and clean and flat in this case. Not a big deal. And you want a flat roof in this particular case. Trucks. I didn't mention trucks. I had a pair of two pair of brass side frames, which were in a marriage of inconvenience with some Athearn bolsters, some Intermountain wheel sets. They roll nice and smooth. What more do you want? They work. Okay, we put a new floor in. This is more complicated than it looks, actually. First thing that went into this floor was a sheet of 32nd thick basswood, the grain running lengthwise. Actually, 2 pieces, so I could fit it into the curved ends at each end. And that was then used as the base for adding the scribe siding on top of that. And you get a cross grain, so it's all wood glued together and it's very sturdy. The bolsters, car bolsters, those are resin castings out of my parts bin. The needle beams are actually 2 pieces of channel. I think it's 5/32 channel with a piece of 5/32 by 20 or 40 thousandths styrene in between them to give it some thickness. So it's a little bit thicker than a regular I-beam. And it also gives you room to drill into from the top to put your queen posts centered in it. And those are all put together then with, in this case, MEK. The truss rods are brass or phosphor bronze, actually. In this case, pre-shape these to what you need. There's a bit of an angle at this end, an angle here. They meet in the middle. That's 1 piece. So there's 4 of them. There's a little piece of brass soldered to the end over here to give you a flat surface. That gets glued down to the wood at the base of the bolster using some CA and goo. Just connect the dots or the 2 halves of the truss rods with a Turnbuckle, it's a T-sheet part. These are really nice. They slide right. You slide one on all the way on one wire, align the wires, slide them back together, drop a CA on both ends, you're done. The steps are 15 thousandths by 60 thousandths brass stock. Just bend that to shape. There's actually a step, I think, on these. So it actually is soldered a piece on the back side of each of those. I'm not sure if I remember how I did that now, but I'm pretty sure I did. There's actually another piece at right angles to give like a step here, as opposed to just a loop. You can see these are bent with, I've got these bent under like this, so there's a place for it to get you a good surface for gluing. And these are actually just glued in place with goo and CA. They're very sturdy and very difficult to remove, actually. This massive brake cylinder is sitting on a little bit of a raised spot. This is a Q-car. I believe a Q-car casting. Q-car is still in business. You just need a basic brake cylinder. Drill out the ends of the levers and the clevises, and you can add some wire that runs back underneath the trucks into underneath the car bolsters. That's our underbody. So that was pretty straightforward. You can see the sides, side view. We need some ladders at each end, opposite corners. Well, that's just old ladder stock. It's actually probably all nation stuff. The thing is, you have to take your Dremel and undercut top here, because it's a raised lip there and over this edge. So you're undercutting 3 out of the 4 sections. These ladders are always kind of warped. You need to put a little weight on top of them, put some flux, quick torch, bang. It's just touch it with a solder. You just touch it with a spot at both ends. 3 out of 4 I hit, I think. Probably got the 4th one on the other side. I can't see on that one. So, doors. Doors have to fill that hole. And I decided on double doors. Plenty of excess. And this just spans the distance. I basically hold these into place, mark where the exposed area is, and build a door in between. And just laminate that up with 10 or 15 thousandths styrene until you have a door that you like. There's a piece of I-beam or channel behind these to keep them rigid, because this is actually prone to warping, particularly when you put a lot of MEK on it. It likes to warp. So a box or I-beam or a channel that's behind it keeps it in place. The little notch here on these is actually to fit around the brass on the inside of the body shell. So you have to kind of measure that and make it fit. So you can see this is going to fit right in this hole. There's that little piece right there. Just have to get around that little piece and it's another one on this side. And some 28 thousandths or 25 thousandths phosphor bronze wire for the handles. Easy enough to do. And while we're at it, when we glue these in, right before we glue them in, well, yeah, we'll drill some holes here, add another handle here, and quick solder those into place. And then put the styrene in, because putting the styrene in first and then taking the torch to the brass is a good way to end up having to build a new set of doors. And I like to avoid making too much work for myself. Okay, that roof. We still have to shape the ends. Just do this with a belt sander and a 4-in-hand. I've got a 4-inch upright belt sander that my grandfather built from. It's a home built belt sander. It's as old as I am, but it still works just fine. And you just take enough off until you're happy with it. Don't worry about too much else. You know, when it looks good, stop. It is that simple. Okay, so glued on some roof walk supports. I think those are O-scale 3x4s or 4x4s. I'm not sure which. The roof got canvas, which is one single ply napkin glued on with 50% overlap, the whole top. And you can actually bend this around the curve, around the corner. You can wrap the edge, works just fine. Just paint it slow with the glue and water, and it'll bend that paper right around the corner. So then it gets painted. That's dark gray. The roof walks are roof brown. The roof mats are roof brown. I went back and touched that up. Apparently that one didn't quite get painted properly before I took the photo. But I know I went back and fixed that. So that gets you your roof. Okay, car body. This was an August exercise when it was really good and hot outside, and I managed to burn my fingers with the brass. Spray painting out in the driveway over the blacktop, on top of a trash can on a cardboard box. That's Hunt Club Green. It's a Rust-Oleum satin color. It's a nice color for traction cars, actually. I've been using it quite a lot of late. Now just put all the parts together, and there's only a couple of parts, and so we glue the roof right down and not worry about it. Those two panels in the front and underneath the roof, glue and CA, and you just position it equally all the way around and let it dry. Lettering, that's dry transfers. They're old, the remnants of my collection of dry transfer alphabet are custom. Sorry, they're the custom printings, the CG and W that I got from Clover House a long time ago. But there's other sources for dry transfers. Trucks just painted those with engine steam black or engine black. Radial couplers, I've shown how to make radial couplers before on the show. They're just something you put together using KDs and those brass castings, and lots of colorful language where you adjust the brass castings to fit the KDs. I did not forget to mention, of course, there is a brake assembly at the one end, and it gets added very late. Makes it a lot easier to paint. You assemble this, it's a precision scale, large precision scale brake wheel, the brake housing. I don't know if that was from Precision Scale or All Nation or Parts Unknown. There's a piece of chain. It's actually on a piece of brass wire that's fed up inside the brake housing. So this is all one unit, and gets painted black, gets glued to the wall, and should go through the floor, but I'm faking that. There's just a little touch of goo here at the base, and the last link of chain is touching that. And that's pretty much how you finish that and get that done. And there's the top of the roof, done again. There's the underbody. It's just Rust-Oleum flat black. Nothing fancy. Try to keep this simple on paint. And that's the end. One traction freight box freight trailer done. So, any questions?
How much total cost you got in that, Martin?
Oh, well, the most expensive thing was buying a brass shell. It was probably $45, $50.
Yeah.
But you could just scratch build the whole car if you wanted to. I've done that in the past.
Yeah.
Hey, Martin, I got a question.
Yes, sir. That
brass shell, the doors, they were offset, if you will. Was that on? Did they make a mistake soldering that up, or is that how it is?
The door arrangements on freight trailers is about it's pretty much infinite on variability. I'll give you an example. The CERA standard freight trailer, I use the word standard loosely. There were only 16 variations of that one. and half those variations had to do with the doors. There were single doors, there were double doors, there were inside double, outside double, and then there were end doors. So there were at least 16 variations of a standard car. So freight trailers, they were made to whatever the company that ran them wanted that day. So yeah, I wanted a double door one. And offset, yeah, they offset them. Well, regular freight cars were offset too.
Nice build.
Well, it was a good looking car, Mark. Thank you.
The only problem I have with it, it's a little long. I'm not quite sure whether I can keep it or not. looks a little awkward. I've got too many cars. I've gotten recently building things that are more than 40 feet long, and they're fun, but when you get done with them, they look funny on a 28-inch curve.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. See you next time.
Yep.
Well, now we want to turn to Steve Sherrill. And before I do that, I want to make a note here. At the end of the show, instead of having our caboose, what we're going to do is show you a video of the Pittsburg National Narrow Gauge Conventions contest room and all the different models that were entered in the contest. It's really something to see. I hope you can stay through Steve Sherrill's What Do You Want to Talk About segment, so you'll be able to see it. I should have announced it earlier. Frankly, I just forgot to do it. I'm sorry. So Steve, welcome.
Thank you, Jim. Tonight I'm going to talk about, I hope, layout presentation. So what I want to do is, if I can, and of course it's not going to, okay, it's not going to work for me. So anyway, layout presentation. How many of you are, when you go to visit a layout, are attracted when you walk down that basement steps and you see the layout? What's the first thing that you see? Is it a pile of old boxes under the layout? Is it skirting around the layout? Is the your layout room presentable? Exactly what attracts you when you first come down those steps to see that layout. Now, sometimes it is the overwhelming furniture in the room. By that I mean it could be a clock, pictures of railroad pictures. It could be a nice fascia. Could be mountains. It could be a lot of things. What are you doing to prepare for the open house that's going to make someone want to come in and get close to looking at your layout and appreciating the work that you've done? I always try to have a very nice, orderly looking layout room, and not let everybody see the entire railroad. You know, I have view blocks, things like that. Now, I need some of you to tell me what you're doing to make yours look attractive. I know when I saw Greg Cassidy's railroad, I've seen a couple of pictures of his. His layout is not a rectangle. It kind of flows. So to me, that's an attractive presentation. And Greg, if you've got something, a picture you can put up like that, that would be a good assist for me right now. Tom, if you have something you can show. I don't know if Jeff, if you have anything that you could show that would make someone want to come in and like really look at your railroad and spend time there. I know you've got some detailed buildings, some scenes that would.
How's that, Steve?
You know, if you look at this railroad here, this is Greg's railroad. We all know that he recently had an open house. If I was coming into this railroad, I would be very attracted to the flow of the fascia, which kind of gives me I want to walk in, see the yard, see where those tracks are going. You know, I'd probably follow that around until it went into disappearing over here on the left-hand side in the tunnel. But it's an attractive presentation of your railroad. It's got a nice backdrop. It's clean looking. He's got a lot of rolling stock that's interesting.
Well, I have to apologize for the table and trash can. I was just finishing up some scenery when I took this picture.
Well, I was going to get to that.
It's not usually there.
No, that's not the picture I thought I would see. I thought I would have seen the other picture that you have of the left-hand side of it, of the railroad, which shows
that's buried somewhere in my computer.
Yes. I mean, but really, this is very interesting. You look at the fascia, how nice and clean the fascia is. I guess those are switch controls.
Yes, turnout controls.
See how they're recessed. That's interesting. These are interesting things that you've done, which you're going to get people to ask you about. And that's what you want. You want the presentation of your railroad to create interest from the visitors. You want them to ask you questions that you can, show your expertise. Just a great example. So I like that presentation, and I'll get down to see a railroad one day. Probably right after you come to see mine.
Yeah.
Okay, now we have Tom. If you can show one of yours, if you look behind Tom and what he's sitting at right now, I mean, this is an outstanding presentation here. You can see he's got his electronics visible, and everybody likes electronics. He would get a lot of questions on that. Obviously, his structures, being the outstanding build that they are would always create the interest. Tom, can you put your picture up on there? Can you do that?
Sharing, or I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the back. If you give me a minute, I emailed myself some photos that I just took of it.
Okay.
Just give me a minute or two and I'll have photos for you.
Okay. I know some of you, I don't know, Jeff, if you're, can you present your railroad?
Hey, Steve, this is Phil. Let me show a couple of pictures, not of my railroad, but I went to an operations session at Desert Ops weekend before last and operated on 5 layouts. And it's a little different doing operating layouts versus open houses. But let me show you a couple of these pictures because I think they're kind of interesting. So this is a layout that is, I think it's 2,200, 2,500 square feet. It's actually built, the guy who built this bought the house next door, dug out a huge basement, and then built an addition to his house on top of it. So this is actually the part of the layout that is unfinished. So what you see here is there's no skirting, and these wood frames up here are for overhead skirting. You can kind of see that back here in the background.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of what it starts to look like where, the skirting is. Now, what's interesting is I actually operated, this is a creamery here. I actually operated this area here. What's really interesting is that this side has skirting and this side didn't. I have to say, and the whole time I was there, I didn't notice the difference. But what I wanted to show you is this is kind of what the railroad looks like after the skirting was put in place.
Yeah.
So, I think it's really interesting that, you kind of see the difference between, these photos where you see the layout more in that's a different layout, in more of a basic shape. And then there were a couple of narrow gauge layouts that were there. And I think this one was very nice. I'm going to jump back through where he had a lot of the layout had nice skirting, etc. So, I think it's really interesting. You're right. I think it depends a lot. If you're doing an open house where it's more the public, it's really important. If you're doing model railroaders, especially like an operations session, it may be less important to have things like skirting because people don't notice as much.
Well, Steve, this is Jeff Thornton. I feel a lot of it is beauty is in the eye of the beholder, because some people like Jason Jensen, he's into structures and building and modeling. If you really appreciate a full layout and appreciate the craftsmanship of the modeling, that really draws your attention. I've been to a plywood Pacific that was the CTC system was unbelievable with automatic block detection and everything. And if you're really into that, and it goes to long layouts versus switching layouts. But I guess it depends on if you share the similar interest as the layout owner, because some people may walk in and want to see long trains. And I don't think you're going to see it on this layout in particular.
Is this, you guys seeing this? Yeah.
Yeah.
So this layout's 35 feet by 14. This is just a section of it. Reason that the bench work took so long is I built all this custom cabinetry work underneath the layout. And this is a very thick MDF board, so you can lean against it, not damage the layout. And it's all painted this green that I picked up from the backdrop, so it kind of matches. But this runs the perimeter of the layout, and the fascia, I should say, runs the perimeter of the layout. I'll show you another picture, but as far as skirting, let's see here.
Tom, where's your built-in cup holders?
My what?
Built-in cup holders.
Yeah. All right, hold on one second. I never show these photos, so this is.
That's actually a really interesting question. Do you actually do people allow drinks into the layout room or not? That's a very interesting discussion in of itself.
Here's the unfinished portion of the layout. See that? Yeah.
Now, Tom, you're using FlexTrack, right?
I'm using Pico FlexTrack for the most part. Yeah.
See, Steve, the plywood Pacific I saw that was CTC and everything, it was all hand-laid track and hand-built switches. And I tell you what, if you appreciate track work, it was sparse, mostly plywood, some landscaping, but there were still cardboard boxes where there might be a station someday.
Yeah,
but it was on a layout tour because the CTC and the electrical system was just unbelievable. The JMRI and all that.
Well, all those are things that would be of interest to visitors,
Yep.
I mean, and that's where you would get your questions. I mean, for instance, Tom has got very beautiful structures. People are going to ask about the structures, and that leads into other sharing of details about the layout. But all the electronics are pretty interesting.
Electronics. There's you can see it here. There's the glass door on it. Comes out to be repaired if you like. And it's like a nuclear submarine.
Are you going to put doors on those shelves, or are you going to leave them?
I don't know yet. Probably doors at this point.
Yeah.
If I could point out something there with Tom's layout in the background, his fascia is a dark color. I used that dark color for years. And then with my layout, you can see across, say, a center island, and then you see across another aisle to the next piece of scenery. And the dark color made lines of demarcation. So I changed to a very earthy neutral color that was picked up more or less in the whole blend of my scenery. So it didn't stand out across the room, because my room is not that friendly when you walk in, meaning you haven't got a big open space. My room is only 25 by 14 with a couple alcoves, and I filled it full of layout because it's my easel for building on and making things. But getting that neutral color took away those harsh lines when you're looking across and seeing several scenes on other areas, and that helped a lot. I did that with the Midwood layout, because that became more open. We took some walls down, you could see the whole layout. And it was, again, that color. We all copied that from Lex Parker. And I used it myself for years, but then I realized it was just it really stood out and was a line of demarcation between the end of the layout. And when you softened that right up, it disappeared with the scenery, and it became modular all the way across the room. And when you're looking, and which helped mine because I have narrow aisles. So what's down below, you're not, it's only 7 inches from your stomach down. So you can't really see down there.
But Steve, I understand what you're getting to. Like if, say you walk into the basement, let's say the first time, and is it what's greeting you? What's the ta-da moment? Like, is it a big bridge or is it a large mine concept or something like that? Is that what you're getting to?
Yes, that's what I was trying to get to. Was what's going to make you want to come on down those steps and walk around that railroad? I would say if you come down the steps and your layout is not finished, for instance, there is, it's not very appealing if you just see bench work. And we all go through that where we're not finished the layout itself. But once you move away from that, you should kind of design your railroad to have a aha moment the first thing you see. Now, I don't know who let me ask Greg Cassidy.
Well, wait a minute. Wait, we got to stop this. I've got to show this other video because I want to stop the show around 9 o'clock because that's a 2-hour show. We can continue this after that if you want to. And I hate to cut this short because I think this is so interesting. But I do want to make sure that we show the narrow gauge contest segment. So, okay. Steve, I'm sorry we need to stop this until after I can get the next segment in here, and then we can come back and continue this discussion.
Okay.
So, Phil, you and Jeff Jordan and Tom Farrell, who were at the narrow gauge convention in Pittsburg, if you could maybe talk us through the video of the contest.
Absolutely. So this is actually, let me make sure I've got Jeff here with us. Find Jeff. There he is. Oh,
yep, I'm here.
Now he's up here. So the three of us actually went to the narrow gauge convention. We ended up getting an Airbnb, by the way, which was really pretty cool. If you haven't done that, it was a great way to go to the convention. Kind of cool doing it as a group. But we actually did spend a little time looking at the contest room. So we've got is basically a video of the room and then pictures of the models. So I thought it's a good opportunity. The sound on it, I'll put it down. We can talk about it and just kind of make comments and kind of go from there. So let me see if I can get the video going here. Here we go. So this will start. So the convention was a nice hotel there in Pittsburg, actually right next to a rail yard, though you really couldn't see it. So this is kind of a general overview of the contest room and all the different categories that they had at the convention. So just an opportunity to look at. If you guys want to comment on any of the models, and like I said, there's going to be individual pictures coming up in a few minutes. But you can kind of see the number of models that were here, and as we get a little closer, you'll see some of the quality of some of these models. And then over here on this wall, we've got all of the pictures.
Bill, were all the models that we're seeing in the contest room, were they all to be judged as part of a contest, or were some of them like?
So they don't do any judging. It's all popular vote. So everybody who comes to the convention gets a sheet. You can see these guys, most of them have a sheet there. It has each category, and you put the number down in the category you want, and all of the awards are by popular vote. So there's no like it's not like the NMRA where you're getting judged as a numerical judge. It's purely based on, you know, the model itself.
Phil,
And
the
the popular
photographs. Phil, the photographs, were they rail fanning photos or photos of models?
They were both. They have prototype photos. They have prototype and model photos, and they have color and black and white. So there are actually 4 photo categories they have. And you can see all the structures. Of course, the one on the back there is Tom's. We'll see that in a moment in more detail. But you see an amazing variety of scales and different kinds of equipment and engines. But the detail on everything and, you know, the quality of modeling is just pretty much exquisite. By the way, notice the little very antique steam engine there running in the background in the middle. That was actually an incredibly tiny model that actually was operating.
These dioramas, I think, are most competitive.
Bill, are all these by individuals or these clubs or?
Basically all individuals.
Can you give us some examples of the different categories?
Well, so these were dioramas. There's, you know, obviously there's structures, there's locomotives rod, locomotives non-rod. There are different kinds of cars, passenger cars, freight cars, maintenance away cars, other equipment, logging equipment is a category you'll see in a moment. These here are all dioramas.
There's photographs, color, black and white, models, colors, black and white.
So G scale can be in the same category and go up against an HON3?
Yep. Wait a few minutes on the when we see the I don't know, it's not maintenance way. I think it's maybe maintenance way category. There's a G scale rotary snowplow and I think an HON3 engine side by side, or HON3 piece of equipment side by side.
But all of the passenger cars, for example, regardless of scale, they're all judged under the passenger car category.
Exactly.
Right?
Each of these tables is a category. It's kind of the way it's set up. Each round table is a category, and when you come to the convention, you check your model in, and you're given a number in that category, and you fill out one of the sheets. And there are no names on the sheet, so the intent is nobody's supposed to know whose model is which.
Is there a description of the models or what?
Yes, there is. And we'll see some of those. You see the form there. There's a description. A lot of times, if there's a prototype, what it was based on, etc. You guys see there's some very different scales.
Well, you're sure right about the quality of the modeling, though. That's just exquisite.
Yeah, there are some phenomenal models here.
Are there prizes for first place, second place?
There's you'll see that in a minute when we have one that we showed the prize for it, and a little bit later in the video.
That's an amazing model there.
Yeah. And you guys feel free to comment on ones that you thought. Like I said, I've got a few from Jeff at the end that were his favorites. He took a few photos, and these are all just everything, because I thought it was great to let everybody just see an overall view of kind of the amazing both array and quality of modeling you see here.
A lot of these models certainly you won't see on everybody's layout.
No.
Across the table there is a World War I car. They're carrying soldiers to the front in the narrow gauge train, and you see the car is not only detailed, it's got a full complement of soldiers as well.
Yeah, and that's the guy who built that has is the guy who has a module of World War I front. There it is. See you can see better pictures of most of these in a minute that are still pictures, so you can see a little bit more detail. But so you kind of imagine if you were there, you had to vote between these and pick the one you like best in this category.
Many people said this was the highest quality group of models they've seen in quite some time.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. There were some. You're going to see a couple here in a little while, and especially when you see the still photos, they're actually a little bit better to see detail. But there are some pretty amazing models.
Narrow gauge really brings out the modelers, I guess, because there's less available in kits, and so people are pushed in the direction of making their own models, and there's just some extraordinary work here.
It's amazing how many people have entered the contest. It's a tremendous amount of models.
In some cases, transporting their models great distances to bring to the show, too.
Yeah, I mean, these box cars, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, I think in addition to what you said, conversely, narrow gauge is more interesting to modelers because it's a little more unique. You have more imagination you can use with it, and to any true modeler, look at narrow gauge and you go, wow, I can run wild here.
Yep, and there's such a wild variety. You see the critters and so forth, and many of those are based on prototypes. They're not just out of somebody's head. Though on the other hand, you may have seen on the steam locomotive table a buyer's garret lettered for the Rio Grande Southern Railroad.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful model, by the way, but I just had to laugh when I saw the Rio Grande Southern Sunrise Herald on both tenders.
Look at the quality of these guys.
Yeah, these are all favorite train. You kind of saw that on the placard there. I tried to get the placards, but was not as effective as I'd hoped to be. But
you did a great job shooting this video. This is awesome video. Thank you.
No, it really
by the way,
did.
this was all shot with a gimbal. I bought the $90 gimbal on Amazon, and it makes shooting these things with your iPhone a lot better. It's a lot smoother.
Did you get any pictures of the robot?
I did, and they're not in here. They're actually there. I don't think they're in here. I actually have them separate. I put it in a different part of the video.
He's referring to a steampunk version of R2-D2 at full size that ran up and down the aisles of the corridors of the hotel.
Yeah, when we get done with this, I've actually got a photo of it. I'll show it after we get done with this before we close. You guys will find it pretty cool. I think I've got a video of it, actually. I just don't think I put it in here. There it is in the background.
There it is in the corner.
So this is cool. You asked about scale. Look at this rotary snowplow in G scale. And the thing's 3 feet long. And just
if you
amazing.
look in the interior, it is completely detailed to the last valve and stem and rod is just astounding.
And then the snowplow next to it, and then right in front here,
yep,
is one that's, I don't know, HON3 maybe. There's an HON3 there, I think. I thought these two flangers, the relative scale difference was interesting.
I'd hate to be one of the judges.
Everybody's a judge.
Huh?
It's pure popular vote. So everybody's a judge. Everybody picks which model they thought was the best in each category.
It'd be tough.
Cost me a lot of $20 bills to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom was in the bar just buying drinks all night.
Hey, did you see the Whistle Stop Saloon? Here, have a beer.
Oh my goodness. Beautiful model.
There was the robot there in the background.
I love it.
Look at the detail on the cab of that log loader. It's amazing.
There's Martin.
Okay, so would this be also categorized as an RPM meet?
No.
No, it's just the National Narrow Gauge Convention. It happens every year, and it's like this it's pretty much like this every year. I mean, this is very high quality, but it's always been high quality.
This will be in St. Louis next year.
Yep.
Yeah. I keep seeing a lot of models from the guys in our group that they took home, I think it was 6 awards. That one right there with the roof off. The windows slide. Jimmy always makes his windows, they slide and work.
That one's got the lights on too.
Yeah, and this is the logging equipment category here, obviously.
I like that logging car.
Oh yeah, no, it's just absolutely excellent.
Even the photographs.
What category is coffee maker in?
These are model photos here.
There's a familiar one.
Yeah.
That the guy who built that, I'm not sure used the kit from Wit and Wisdom though, because he didn't reference that in his write-up.
Wow, sugar cane.
So those are obviously prototypes there.
Yeah.
Amazing.
East Broad Top.
I know that. Rhino Coal Tower. I know that one.
There's a prototype door.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to move too fast with these cameras because it makes everybody dizzy.
I know.
Or nauseous, depending on your stomach.
Nauseous, yeah. Martin, you're sleeping on the job there.
So we're now into, these are now just still photos of everything. So you kind of get a closer up shot of them. And you can see some of the amazing detail on some of these.
Amazing model there.
You can see the logging equipment draws lots of interest.
Yep.
Because it's so esoteric. It's so,
and there's the interior.
Interior of the rotary snowplow.
Yeah.
It looks like it could almost work.
Yep.
Just fire it up.
That's that little bitty maintenance away car you saw before.
Yep. That was one of the nice things about the videos. You guys see the scale. This is the smaller flanger. And then the next picture is, I think, the larger flanger.
I like the mirror effect. It's a great thing to do.
Yep. And there was a youth category. There were 2 young men that were actually the sons of one of the guys who was working the convention, and they had some cool models.
Red shirt.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we met them on a previous show, didn't we, Phil?
Yeah, we did. We met them. Those were the 2 young men we met. These were their models.
Amazing.
So Jeff, next year you're entering the contest?
I came away from this pretty intimidated. you think you do good work, and then you come and see some of this stuff and realize how much further you have to go.
Yeah.
You have a layout, maybe they don't.
Yes.
Those are interesting cars.
Great
The
imagination.
walkways. Imagine there's a prototype for it.
Here we are at the structures. I spent a lot of time looking at the structures. Hopefully the garage one has got some good coverage in here. It was a remarkable structure.
That's a beautiful church.
Jewish synagogue for most of it.
This in the interior.
This was a cool model too.
Mm-hmm.
They're all cool.
You know, you attend a convention like this, you could spend an awful lot of time just in this room.
Oh, there's
So
one.
you guys have seen this before. This was Tom's model.
Yeah.
I kind of put a couple of pictures in because it was very well received. In fact, Tom got the first place in structures, and Mount Albert actually does a best wooden model award and won that also. So he did very well in terms of his structure.
Should be proud, Tom.
Right. That structure is racking up the awards.
Yep.
Now you have to do the one that's behind you in that picture.
The diorama ones are the ones. This is going to be next year. I'm going to do this is the big.
Yeah, this was that little rope, that little engine that ran.
These all scratch built?
Some of them are scratch built, some of them are more kit bashed, and
Yeah, you see on the descriptions, they explain if it was taken from kit or multiple kits or multiple models or scratch built.
Great job.
All of them are narrogated.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
There's the buyer's Garrett lettered for the Rio Grande Southern. Look at that back end.
Stuff
look at the
on
back end. Yeah.
Here's the garage.
That one
And
was
this
amazing.
side is impressive, but wait until you see the other side. It's got a full scrap yard, and I estimate there's 50 Jordan miniature vehicles in there in the scrap yard.
Do you know how many models there were and modules were set up?
I don't know how I quite count off of this because I took pictures of every model, so I have a picture for every model so I can count them. But there are probably, I don't know, probably 100 at least.
I was thinking of that. Man. Well, guys, you can see what you're going to have to do. Man.
This one's got a full interior too. There it is.
Yep.
Cement mixer.
That's original.
Yeah, steam powered cement mixer.
Wow.
I like that. That's
There's the troops, yeah. Talk about figure painting.
Oh. Be nice to know how many hours they spent on some of these.
It's a year. There's a lot of hours in the year.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Between conventions.
Martin ought to enter one of his.
Is that a side dump?
Side dump, yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
The tank is fantastic. Beautiful weathering.
This was a module that's a Japanese, or actually it's a guy from Paris, excuse me.
Yeah.
And he brought this from Paris and set it up in the modular room. I have some modular videos. That's a separate video, I think.
Looks like it's all laser cut too.
Yep. And these were some pictures from Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff's favorites.
This is one I thought I could replicate by sawing off a Bachmann car. One of the garages. I'm working on gas stations right now.
These were my two competitors here when I looked at everything. I thought,
there's the back of that garage. Look at that scrapyard. All those Jordan miniature vehicles. Rio Grande Southern Buyers Garrett again.
Oh.
Sucker for nice narrow gauge steam locomotives.
Jeff, was that a mogul?
So this is the vendor room. There are just some photos of the vendor room. Didn't try to make a video of it. So fairly good sized vendor room, a lot of interesting vendors. And there are also 7 suites in the hotel that had large vendors. So for example, Banta was in a room by himself.
That's us in the up top.
Yeah, you see that's the new tracks modeling and our video running there.
Yeah.
Now the suites were impressive. Martin was there with his scenery materials. One of the 3D printers was there with a huge selection of 3D printed figures. Bantu was there with a large selection of his kits and a kit that, or a structure that he was building in what F gauge, G gauge of a Rio Grande station.
The Rico, he's building a custom version of the Rico station in G scale that's got to be 8 feet long.
Yeah.
It was pretty amazing. I should have taken some pictures of it. I didn't take any pictures in those rooms. But there were like, I think 7 of those that were there. But it was a very, very cool convention. Let me see if I can find just one last thing here. I got to go find it in the right place, and that's always a challenge in the world.
Got to find the robot.
That's what I'm trying. That's what I'm looking for. And the problem is I've got to go in a different place because I had not actually planned on using it for these.
We can get it next time.
Yeah, we can do it next time. That's true too. Yeah, we can do it. Let's do it next time. That's good enough. So yeah,
show it next week.
Exactly. So yeah, no, it's one of the, I mean, it's one of the things, if you haven't been to a narrow gauge convention and you're a narrow gauge, you just love great modeling. St. Louis is not hard to get to. There are some pretty amazing layouts to go see. They have really good layout tours, and they are, I have to say, the narrow gauge conventions have the best organized layout tours. When I did a local regional convention, I organized it based on what I learned going to narrow gauge convention. Everybody said it was the best they'd been to, and that was simply because I was just copying what they do in terms of good layout tour information. So, and I think St. Louis will be great. And again, great vendor room, lots of opportunities to buy things that you need.
And if you're coming, you're coming from the East Coast, you have to go through Indiana to get to St. Louis, and anybody's welcome to stop by and see my layout.
Well, that was it. That was it, Jim. And what we're going to do is we actually have layout videos. I'm going to try to do the same for about 7 or 8 of the open layouts, and there were a couple of them that were pretty cool. There were some that were really interesting. The one that was really, really interesting was a guy who was from, I think, Chile,
Yeah.
Yes.
And he is a professor at Carnegie Mellon. He's actually a music professor. He's a world-class flutist, and he built a layout based on a narrow gauge railroad from his hometown, and it's pretty amazing.
ON30s.
In ON30, yeah, a number of ON30 layouts. So anyway, that was it, Jim.
As I understand it, what we've agreed.
What we just lost Jim, I think.
As I understand what we're planning to do. No, I don't think so.
Okay, good.
You can't hear me?
We got you now.
Yes, we got you.
Okay. As I understand it, what we're going to do is instead of showing the caboose for a while, we're going to show one of the videos that Phil and Jeff and Tom made of the convention each week. So next week we'll have another one, in the following week and so forth, to give you a flavor of what this National Narrow Gauge Convention was all about. And I can't thank you enough, guys, for taking the videos and the pictures and everything. I think tonight's contest room was just outstanding. And people like me, I've never been to a National Narrow Gauge Convention, so I've never seen a lot of this kind of thing before. And it was just, the modeling, you have to say, it was just absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Cool. Thanks, Jim.
And that's it for our show this evening. So thanks again for everybody being here. Hope you enjoyed it. Most importantly, I hope you learned something. That's what the shows are all about. And till next week, happy modeling.